Hello, collective. All right, I want to keep these as concise as possible. All right, so this is going to be the Temperance reading, and this is going to be the first of the major arcana readings. Now, Temperance is number 14. It's not the first of the major arcana, but I find that it doesn't really matter, because if you're on this path, you know we don't encounter these challenges. The major arcana are the unavoidable challenges, lessons, facets of our energy that we are experiencing. Now, you may be a Sagittarius, you may have Sagittarius high in your chart. Either way, the divine masculine and divine feminine, they go through all these energies, right? They collect all these energies for their union, so when they come together, they're at their highest form, they're at their highest power, and that collection that they bring together is for the collective, right? They do the work to shift the collective energy. So if you've been following me for divine love readings because you're on a twin flame journey, or you subscribe to the whole Hollywood twin flame journey, this is not going to be the place for you, because divine union is, by its very definition, it's divine. It's completely perfect timing, right? The only perfect timing is divine timing. It's perfectly timed. There's no runner, chaser. Nobody's in a love triangle. Everybody's ready, right? They're both ready. They're both at their highest form. They both have been doing the work. And if you understand the divine path, your divine path, we're always doing the work, right? The work never stops, and that's the fun of it, right? So if you want to follow me over on Instagram, same name, Being Tarotist, I'm going to be implementing in making reels, to implement the advice that I either channel or decide would be effective. I practice a lot of restraints, and I'm fascinated with that. So I like to implement new restraints. So if I channel something new, I'm going to take my own advice. If it's something that I've already done, I'm just going to do it again and take my own advice as well. And so that's what Temperance is about. Temperance is about restraint. It's about knowing when to go, when to stay. It's about sitting. There's patience, and it's the waiting. It's the pause in between an old cycle and a new cycle, right? And that's where we are. We're in that in-between. The lovely bones. We're in that in-between where we are taking everything that we've learned, all right, and everything that we've been challenged by, everything that we've collected, all this information, and we are creating a new reality, right? And in that space is the divine union, right? And then we create a new reality. We can start creating a new reality for ourselves, of course, independently, and that in that creation, right, in that process of creation is when we typically find our person. So it's not necessarily like just sitting at home and waiting for your divine person to come knock on your door. Come on, knock on my door. Three's company too. But that may also be the case with your journey, right? If you're the divine feminine, the divine masculine pursues, right? So let's talk about divine energy, right? Divine energy is unconditional. It is the polarity and the duality in all things, right? So when I say God and divine, that's what I'm referring to. When I say demonic, I'm referring to conditional, divisive, and polarizing energy, right? There's a difference between polarity and polarizing. There's a difference between divine and division, right? It's the higher vibration and the lower vibration, right? Now, light and dark is a polarity, right? One can't exist without the other, kind of thing. And so those are anything that has duality or polarity is within the divine, and it's also within the demonic, right? Within the shadow. And I will say devil as well, which does not want me to talk about this, but get over it. Not today, Satan. Return to sender. So what I've done here is I've gone into the decks and I've pulled the Temperance card and the cards that are sandwiching the Temperance card. So in this deck, I have Temperance, this beautiful Temperance with the Hermit, which is another major arcana that I'll probably be doing next. But that is another, because I think this is a major step. This is knowing when to stay and do the internal work, and then this is like the internal work, the internal environment. So we have an external environment and an internal environment, right? And this is doing the work on your external environment, right? So that's knowing when to go, knowing when to stay, knowing when to do the yin work, the feminine work. Feminine is receptive, and masculine is active. All right, so there's yin and yang, there's masculine and feminine in everything, right? We all have the same ingredients, different recipes. So we'll talk about the feminine and masculine energy within Temperance, right? So masculine elements are fire and air. Feminine elements are water and earth. All right, so the modalities that supplement each sign, all right, because we have the 12 signs, or 13, depending, but we'll talk about 12 signs, okay? The 12 signs are, divided into 4 elements and 3 modalities. Now, the 3 modalities are fixed, which is earth energy, cardinal, which is fire energy, and then mutable. Mutable is the remaining elements, air and water. That's why mutable signs can acclimate, they can accommodate, but their struggle oftentimes is staying too long or going too much, right? They can get too much into their air. Now with a fire sign, if you have air and water is yin, and it can help cool that fire down. Air is masculine, and it can stoke that fire up, right? So there is a balance there that can be quite tricky. Each major arcana is the greatest challenge and the greatest strength for its prospective signs, right? So for Sagittarius, if you are Sagittarius or you've dealt with a Sagittarius, they are a lot of times in their lower vibration, they are more in that masculine energy of go, 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 go. And not as, they're reluctant. And it might not be an active reluctance, right? Because when you're going so fast, it's like speeding down a highway. You don't really see the flowers, right? You don't really see the cute animals. You don't see all that stuff. It just looks all one color. So it's sometimes difficult for them the greatest challenge for them is to come into that feminine energy and come into a pause, a waiting. Temperance is about patience. It's about tempering is waiting, right? It is applied stress. We grow bones through applied stress, all right? There is the most growth through applied stress, but to someone in their lower vibration of Temperance energy or a Sagittarius, their greatest challenge can be feeling claustrophobic, feeling constricted, feeling confined or limited by that feminine energy, by reflecting, by stopping, right? Because they're very active, they're very playful, they're very curious, and they like to try new things, be kind of everywhere at once, and that can get into a shadow aspect of being a workaholic, right? It can get into an aspect of being in a lot of casual relationships, right? Not having the staying power, or the lower vibration, duality in all things. They can also get into a place with mutable signs. They can get into a place where they stay too long. So Temperance is knowing when to because you can apply so much stress to your bones that you break them, right? So you want to apply stress, but it's all about balance. Balance in all things, balance, right? So with this side of Temperance, or this side of the cards here, this is knowing when to go, knowing when to stay, knowing when to do that feminine work. But see, you can stay too long, and this card just makes me laugh. I don't know. It's very Gollum-y. You can get to a place where you are so in your receptive energy and so affected. Because when we go into hermit mode, when we eliminate a lot of things, energies, behaviors, people, we create a nice space, right? Minimalism, it can create a nice space. And then when you go out into this very consumeristic, active world, it can be overwhelming, right? So there is, and you might just not want to deal with people. You might not want to deal with certain things. All right, now this is going to be maybe bothersome for some people to hear, but neuroses, right? Compulsions, OCD, anxiety, all right, usually diagnoses. These are selfish and low vibrational, because what you're doing with these things by being affected is you're making yourself the victim, and you're making yourself the thing, the center of the universe, and everything in the external environment needs to accommodate you. And that's not divine, all right? We are changing ourselves, we are breaking cycles, and we are becoming new. We are purifying our energy and becoming new so that we can come into this divine union and that we can create something new for the collective, right? It's selfless service. You have to work on this self to be selfless, to do this selfless service. And the demonic does not like that, right? So you might be struggling with temperance energy in the sense that you are you're not liking the environment around you, and you have to get out into it to be active in the environment around you, so that you can, because we can shift and change, right? We can't manipulate the external environment. That's demonic. That's lower vibration. But we can manipulate our energy. That's the only energy that we can control. We can't control anything outside of ourselves. We know that. But we can shift the energy around us by shifting and working on our energy. The dogs are out there playing. So that is the space of temperance, and you might be struggling with, wanting to control things around you. So that's the lower vibration. And the ways that's a weakness, right? Weakness is not pain leaving the body, it's indicative. It's the ego is important here. The ego is always important. I'll do a whole separate video on the ego and the intuition. But the ego is very important here. It's what we need to listen to navigate this terrestrial existence. So a movie that I will reference here, all right, because this is a lot about, I'm going to talk about sobriety and restraints, is Thanks for Sharing. It's a movie with Mark Ruffalo, Gwyneth Paltrow, and other wonderful people, Tim Robbins. And Tim Robbins' character, it's all about recovery. There's sex addiction, narcotics addiction, and alcohol addiction, binge eating, right? Kind of all of it. And Tim Robbins is a sponsor, and he says to one of his sponsees, feelings, emotions are like kids. You don't want them driving the car, but you don't want to stuff them in the trunk either, right? So there's that balance of, we need to listen to our ego, we need to listen to our emotions, getting into the heart space, and getting into that yin energy, all right? Getting into that, listening to how we nurture that inner child, because all of us here, I can safely say, are children of chaos. We're here to break cycles. We're here to do the damn work, right? Because those before us did not, right? Those before us neglected the work. Maybe they were neurotic, they were addicted. And so one very practical way, and it's going to be emotional too, of course, because you're going to be releasing a lot of emotions, you're going to be accessing a lot of shadows, is sobriety. I'm assuming, right, most of us have already figured that out. We're working on that, or we're sober, right? Now the thing with temperance is not necessarily eliminating behaviors or people or experiences or memories or shadows completely, right? We don't want death to the ego. We don't want to eliminate things completely. That is typically the process. That's the hermit process, right? Eliminating everything. And so if you're doing that with temperance, is about knowing what to implement back in. It's about discernment, right? Taking the information that you have eliminated and reflecting, and then when you take new information in, you can also reflect on that, right? It's like being a scientist. And if you're doing that in your diet, you could be fasting, right? Or this is the advice, to fast, to, this wouldn't be a vegan channel if I didn't mention a plant-based diet, right? Maybe doing a juice cleanse, and eliminating processed foods, eliminating animal products, eliminating things that influence your hormones, right? Because you might go, oh, I'm not an addict. I'm not an addict. A lot of people want to, even people who are addicts, that's typically the first sign, is when you say, I'm not addicted to anything. We all have a thing. We all have a vice. We all have addictions. We all have compulsions, and that's human nature, right? It's probably what we learned, or the world that we inhabited, the energy that we inhabited, based on a low self-worth, based on neuroses, based on these anxieties that we got from childhood, based on these weaknesses that we were never shown by our divine masculine and feminine, or our guardians, our primary caretakers. We were never shown how to strengthen these things. So that's what we're doing here. We're remothering ourselves, we're refathering ourselves. We're getting into that divine feminine and masculine. We all have it within us, same ingredients, different recipes, right? And so if you're doing any kind of fasting, you're eliminating things from your diet, right? Elimination is an active process, right? You have to actively push things out. You have to actively get things out of you, right? Actively, it's like constipation, right? And that's a major issue with processed foods, with animal products, right? We also have congestion, right, with the circulatory system. So if you're feeling blocked, right, in the circulatory system because you're consuming these things, right, which any addiction is something that stimulates a hormone. We're all hormones, people. That's it. That's all we are as far as biological beings. We're just not that much more interesting than hormones. And so foods, they activate and initiate different hormones in our bodies, right? So sugar is an addiction. Sugar might be one of the worst ones, and not natural sugar, processed sugars, right? And because it doesn't come with any of the other stuff, it's just the sugar, right? So it stimulates something in us that we want, right? Because carbohydrates are our primary energy source. So I feel like you could be changing your diet. I mean, you probably are getting into your health, your fitness. I know Sagittarians, typically they're very health conscious, right? They're very, but that ends up becoming more aesthetically focused, right? So they get into like being in the gym, being active, running, cycling, whatever. They're doing it more for their physical appearance. But this is talking about the internal appearance of things, right? So sugar, it involves insulin, and insulin influences almost every other hormone in our body. Right? So if we are out of balance there, the rest of our hormones are going to go crazy. If we're blocked in one chakra, the rest of the chakras are going to have issues. They're going to be overflowing or underflowing. There's going to be a blockage. There's going to be congestion. There's going to be constipation, energetic constipation, right? But that is also part of the ego, is paying attention to the physical body, right? That's also yoga, listening to the body, tapping into the body. That's this hermit energy, right? So, and you can't temper yourself if you don't know where you're temperamental, right? If you don't know where you're out of balance. So listening to your body when you're influenced by all these other hormones, right? Obviously drugs, we know, like, influence a lot of things. Dairy, I will mention that dairy, you're a morphine addict if you are like ordering extra cheese on everything, okay? Queso morphines. So you're actually addicted. So you might just think, I'm not addicted to anything. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I just get extra cheese. That's a major addiction, and it's sneaky because dairy is scary. It's a good documentary, but it's in everything, right? There's milk in everything, and there's sugar in everything, and there's oils in everything. Oil is also something. We are water, right? We are mostly water. And if you're trying to get into that feminine energy and you're consuming a lot of oils, or a high-fat diet, which is typically in animal products, but trust me, there are, believe me, there are plenty of processed vegan foods or plant-based foods, right? So I'm talking about whole foods, plant foods, getting back to nature. That's what this divine path is. It's becoming organic again. It's getting back, it's tapping back into our elements. It's tapping back into our elements and the powers and the information that is there within the earth, within the sky, within fire, within the water that's within us, right? Because with the pentagram, that's how we tap into source, right? That's how we tap into our celestial knowledge, is by balancing our four elements, our other four elements. So we've got the 5 major elements, right? And that's also the 5 senses, okay? So you want to find out what's bothering your senses, right? If you're feeling aggravated all the time by dogs barking or kids playing, right? If you're feeling aggravated, it's because your senses are blocked, right? They're overstimulated and understimulated, right? There's a chakra that's blocked. There's something that is hormones. You've got a positive feedback loop somewhere, and positive is not good. So physiologically, you don't want a positive feedback loop. You don't want something to be overactive or overproductive hormonally. That's never a good place. So this is all about the balance, and how we do that is we come into a place of creating comfort within the discomfort. We apply stress, right? That's how we build bones. That's how we build strength, right? Strength, Leo, the heart chakra, and the solar plexus, right? So also with circulation, something that we can do is we can do breath work. I would say that's probably the most important thing, right? Is to balance the breath. And if you do box breathing, which has been a saving grace for my anxiety disorder, believe it or not, this is me balanced. Doing box breathing, right? When you breathe in, and when I did breath work classes, I found in myself and in others that the hold after the exhale is the toughest place. That's the struggle, because you really want more, right? You want that inhale. You want to feel alive. You want that ignition, that inspiration, inspire. You want to bring it back in, right? So when we breathe in, prana, it's all information. It's all energetic information. When we breathe in, we're taking information in from our external environment. And then we are tempering it within when we hold. So we breathe in and then we hold. That's temperance. Because you're using that mutable analytical energy to observe and inventory and rule out and becoming decisive, right? There's always a decisiveness, that discernment. You're using that to just observe, right? And that's a very quiet place. But you have information in, right? So you feel like, okay, I've got some stuff in here, so I'm okay. And that hold, right, at the top of that inhale, that feels like good applied stress, because you know you have breath in there, right? So there's a little bit more safety to that. But then when you exhale, that active masculine energy of eliminating, right? Eliminating the root chakra, that's releasing, letting go, that's death energy, that's scorpionic energy, that's releasing information. All right? You're sending information. You're taking everything that you just did, all that observation, and you're sending it back out. And then the external is going to receive that, and that's how you can shift the energy around you. But then when you hold at the bottom of that, after you've sent information out, there's also another observation. Okay, I've eliminated stuff. Now I'm just going to observe in this empty space, and that empty space is quite unnerving for a lot of people. That's where we are right now. That's that place of I've eliminated everything, and I've eliminated people. If you are practicing sobriety or any kind of restraints, right? Yoga, you talk about restraints and how important it is to tap into the divine. Then you know you've applied that stress, and then now this is a different type of stress. It's the absence of stress, right? We are all children of chaos here, I'm assuming, right? Safely. We are used to chaos. We are used to broken and invasive, conditional, all of the shadow aspects. We're used to that low vibration. That feels normal to us, all right? Peace is like the biggest threat to a child of chaos, all right? And it's the most unnerving thing. And that is in that exhale, when you release everything, before you invite new information in, that before you invite anything new in, that place of, that's the fasting, that's the restraint. That is temperance at its most yin. And that is the challenge for most Sagittarians and anybody who's going through that Sagittarius temperance energy. Or just anybody in general, but that if you're in that space and that resonates with you, that's temperance. That's the energy that you're going through. That's the thing. We have all these signs, all these celestial bodies, all these elements, all of these modalities, feminine and masculine. We have all these ingredients here, and we're making a new recipe. We're making a brand new dish, right? We've ripped up our grandma's, beef stew, and we're veganizing it. Or we're just changing our old cycles, and we're making something new that is balanced, that is harmonious, and that is truly peace, right? That's what the collective needs. And so we have to start within. So breath work is important. That's probably the reel that I'm going to do on Instagram, Vegan Terrorist. If you want to follow me over there, that's probably the reel that I'm going to do, is doing box breathing. And really tapping into that. It helps to quiet the mind. It's meditative, of course. And then it helps balance the head and the heart, right? Especially in the way that I do it, because I don't count numbers, I count heartbeats. So I'm really getting my breath and my heart rate matched up. It's a synchronization of the body, the mind, and the spirit, which is prana, which is breath, right? So it's truly tapping into that Holy Trinity, and aligning the three. And that's when you can retain, obtain, attain, receive. That's the word. Because that's that wanting something is attain, obtain, like I want to get that. I want to retain it, I want to hold it in, right? That's the struggle. Receive. That's the yin energy that we're trying to get into. That's the feminine energy, the healing energy, the nurturing energy. So temperance here, this is the fun Sagittarius. We probably all know, right? The Knight of Wands is go, go, go. They're always into different things, right? They're inspiring. They're fun to be around. There's a playfulness to them, but they don't really have a lot of staying power. This individual, the Knight of Wands, is not a stayer. They're a goer. The King of Wands is someone who has taken that fire energy. Sagittarius is a fire sign. They've taken that water modality, the water aspect of their modality. This is the air aspect of that modality. This is the water aspect of that modality. And they're staying, right? So this is the go, this is the stay. That they're feminizing their masculine aspects, right? They're bringing it to a more grounded place. And then you can see in this Temperance card here, they're taking the information, this is the inhale, the information from the outside, external environment, and they're moving it, they're manipulating it, they're working with it, with their internal environment, right? They're taking their vessel and they're taking that that feminine energy, that water energy, and they're moving it back and forth. That is moving the body, that's moving the breath, right? That's maybe moving things around you, right? Eliminating things from your space, but moving them around you. So maybe instead of getting new things, if we're talking about like minimalism, because I incorporate all of these practices, all of these methods into my divine path, right? So minimalism is also because veganism is a form of sobriety. Plant-based eating is definitely a form of sobriety because you're eliminating a lot of induced hormones and things that affect you, block you. They cause disease, they cause disruption and imbalances. And then minimalism is also a form of sobriety. It's also a form of temperance because you are really sitting in that place of peace. You're sitting in a space with less, right? But you have so much more. You have so much more energy because you're not cleaning all the time. You're not looking at stuff that's disrupting your mind all the time. You don't have all that visual clutter. And that can be very unnerving, but there's a lot of, when you create that space, there's a lot of strength that comes from existing with less. Because we as human beings, we don't really need that much. We consume so much. So eliminating from the diet, eliminating from the physical immediate environment, right? Your home, your workspace, your vehicle, whatever. You can shift that environment, you can manipulate that environment. So maybe you feel like, oh, I got all this empty space, I just purged all my stuff out, I did all that spring cleaning, and now I really want to get a lot of stuff back in. You can change that with what you have. It's working with what you have. It's working with what you have right here. And you're just moving it back and forth. So maybe moving your bed, moving your furniture, right? You could create just like a simple piece of art and put it on the wall without getting anything else. Like this back here. That didn't add any, anything. I had paint that I already had, right? And now it's just like, it's art, it's on the wall. It's not something I have to dust. It's not like a piece of art. I didn't buy it, I didn't spend any money on it, right? It's just an example of how you can shift your external environment to temper yourself, right? Because when you start to feel that frustration, when you start to feel that temper rising, that anger, that frustration, and anger is just a form of hurt. So it comes from a place of lack, right? It comes from a place of, I didn't have something before. It was probably your most primary need, which was love. And then so came the rest of them, right? Neglect, abuse, narcissistic parents, conditional upbringings, hyper-religion, right? You come into a place where you are, and that's the thing with recovery programs, is that typically you're replacing one condition of trying to change your external environment with drugs, alcohol, behaviors, to make it more palatable, to make it more enjoyable, and you go to religion, right? And that's often the dynamic, right? Religion can still be it's a very conditional form of spirituality, right? So it's coming to this place of the in-between, right? And creating that comfort in discomfort and not having the attachments to the external to determine how your internal environment goes and feels and all of that, right? So tapping into your feelings. So minimalism, veganism, those are just some methods. Plant-based eating, right? Because veganism can even get into a place where it becomes very conditional, right? And it can become very divisive, right? But that's another video. So, and minimalism does too, right? Anytime you put nomenclature on something, it can become very divisive, it can become polarizing, and it can feel very limiting. So, you know, if those limitations, if those feel like limitations to you, then you can just take aspects for what work for you, right? You can take those ingredients, you take that information, that you can inhale them, and then when you sit with it, you can go, this works for me, this doesn't work for me, and you can eliminate what doesn't work for you, right? And then sit with that and say, does that feel true, right? Does that feel true? Does that feel divine to me? What I've eliminated, what I've kept. And if not, all right, now it's time to inhale again, take some new information in, and learn a little bit more about myself. All right, now very practical, physical, simple ways. Obviously the box breathing. You can take cold showers, right, for your temperature, right? You can self-regulate your temperature. As organic divine beings, right? We did not, when we were actually like tapped into the elements and ourself, and we didn't need to Google everything, right? We listened to our bodies. As yogis, we listen to our bodies. And maybe yogi is another polarizing thing for you, but look at the aspects of different religions, maybe. Maybe that's something where you're really hung up on with like atheism. Maybe you're like, nah, I'm just gonna eliminate all that. I'm not gonna listen to any of that. And that in itself is very polarizing, and that is very divisive, right? So you can take information in and still use what you feels divine to you, what feels authentic to you, and feels aligned with your path, and just eliminate the rest, versus eliminating everything and then feeling stuck because you're like, I'm closed off to any new information. That's a neuroses. That's right. That's that type of weakness. It's very selfish behavior to say, no, you can't talk about that. I can't hear about that because that offends me, right? Everyone feeling so triggered all the time. It's like, get the fuck over it. But that's, you know, that's my take on it. Get over yourself. So you can take cold showers, all right? You can change your, or just turn off your air conditioner, right? Or your heater. Obviously not in a way that's going to risk your life, depending on where you are in the world. But just kind of sit with that, right? Eliminate something from your comfort, from your current comfort, and see how you react to it. See if you are strong enough to delve back into the world around you. Because if you can't deal with it in your own environment, you're going to be fucked in the external environment. You're going to be triggered, you're going to be offended, you're going to be bothered, you're going to be victimized, and then you're going to attract that, right? So if that's what you're inhaling, that's what you're going to see in your internal environment or your external environment, that's what you're going to inhale, and that's what you're going to derive or conclude, deduce from your external environment, all the information that you're taking in, and then that's what you're going to send out into the world. So you're going to be like, I'm a victim, fuck, it's hot, I'm hungry, I'm this, I'm that, I'm moody, I'm on my period, I'm whatever, you know, like I can't stand when people take these things and they make themselves a victim. You're not a victim. You are the God, the creator of your reality, right? So if you don't like your reality, change it, but that's your reality. Change your reality, because out there it's all relative, it's all subjective. There is no one constant truth out there, all right? There is no right and wrong, right? what works for somebody doesn't work for another. So do what works for you, and that has to come with creating comfort in the discomfort, right? So change little things about your environment and make yourself uncomfortable. Push yourself into a place of being still, being patient. That's what temperance is. It's being patient, pouring into yourself, and working with that energy, right? Being a magician in your energy. Another major arcana, all right? We're going to get to all of them, right? So if you're listening to other tarot readings and you're hearing these cards a lot, or this information feels like it is triggering to you, right? That means there's something there. So also pay attention to what you're listening to, right? That is also part of our diet, right? What you're listening to, what you're taking in, all the information you're taking in, pay attention to it, and and observe, right, in that space where you're between the intake of information and the sending out of information, the receiving and the sending, right? The receiving and the giving. When you're in between there, notice how you react to it. Notice how you feel about it. You've got to tap into your feelings. Sorry. That's just part of the game, right? Tap into your feelings and listen to how you're affected, right? Pay attention to what it's done to your breathing, all right? What is it doing to my body? What is it doing to my physical body? Am I tired? Am I invigorated by this, right? So if you're trying to determine how to take new things in, that's going to be indicative of what you like and don't like, what drains your energy, what ignites your energy, right? What fuels that fire in you, that passion in you? What makes you playful? What makes you want to be, right? Because the king sends out the night. He sends out the page in the night. So if he's sending out this night, right, you don't want this. You don't want the night to be coming to the king. The king needs to be sending the night out. He needs to be sending out this very diplomatic, very balanced, very decisive energy, right? Otherwise, this night is like a rogue night. It's just out there kind of, it's a dark night, right? So you don't want that. What else? Change your temperature. Obviously, doing yoga poses is going to literally, biologically, build bones, right? It's going to build strength in our bones, and that's a very yin process. So this is about getting into, it's balancing the masculine aspect of temperance, our masculine aspect of fire and air with water, right? We're cooling it down. Watch out. You're going to fall in love, right? When you learn to do that, then you attract somebody else who's also going to be nurturing to that, because you don't want to get into a relationship with somebody when you are agitated all the time, you're affected all the time, right? Or they are, because you're not going to be able to have an honest conversation. You're not going to be able to, if they aren't self-aware and you're not self-aware, you guys are just going to be awful to each other. You're going to be temperamental. You're going to lose your temper. There's going to be, verbal discourse, disruptions. It's going to be abusive and toxic. It's not going to be healthy. It's not going to be balanced. It's not going to be tempered, right? A sword is tempered because it's heated up, because it's almost to melting, and then it cools down. And now it's a strong sword, right? Like Kill Bill. It is like it's perfecting your sword, right? And as the archers, right? Sagittarius is the archer. Their direction, their target, and their ability to reach that target accurately is determined by the pullback, right? It's right here. And when you practice archery, right, or shooting of any kind, right, you know that you want to shoot on the exhale. You release on the exhale, right? Or maybe you do on the inhale, but it's better to do it on the exhale, right? Because that's the place where you are the most still. So there's finding stillness in that feeling of lack, but you're not lacking. It's your choice to eliminate these things. So remind yourself of that, because you could be struggling with like that victim mentality of I don't have anything, I don't have enough, so I need to get more and more and more. But if you're in a victim mentality and you invite things in, like attracts like, you're going to invite things in that confirm you're in a victim mentality, that confirm you're in lack. You're going to attract low vibration. You can't attract high vibrational stuff if you are constantly inviting in low vibrational stuff, right? It's like saving up, right? You're saving up your money to buy the thing that you really want versus, so yeah, doing your budget, right? Maybe doing like a no buy, right? That's part of minimalism. So maybe looking into minimalism, looking into restraints, looking into yogic restraints, the yamas, and practicing sobriety in a way that changing your perspective of sobriety into a place of fortifying. I'm strengthening myself by making myself uncomfortable. It's not going to kill you to take cold showers, right? And that's new information that you're taking in. Your body's going to react in a different way, and you're gonna feel a way about it. But sometimes you go out into the world and it feels like a cold shower. Sometimes it's not very pleasant. So this is fortifying yourself to a place where you are strong as fuck, right? You're so strong because you've done this work internally to temper your passions, to temper your desires, to temper your impulses, right? Your compulsions, making yourself disciplined. It's a discipline. So a couple years ago I did 12 restraints as my own like 12-step program kind of thing, or part of it. And so you can implement, and I just didn't do a thing for a month, right? It was like not drinking coffee, right? I still drink coffee now, but eliminating it helps you to be discerning. It helps you to have that moment of absence. It makes you go, oh, I don't really need that thing, right? So making it through, it takes like 30 days to break a habit, right? To make or break a habit. So this is like changing your habits and changing your internal environment. Okay, knocking a whole bunch of cards to the floor. I just want to see the bottom of the deck here. We have the Ace of Wands, which is a new passion, new creation, right? This is coming out into the world. This is or accepting new passion. So if you're the masculine, you're pursuing it. Masculine pursues, feminine receives. If you're the feminine, you're receiving new passion. If you're the masculine, you're pursuing new passion. But first, you have to let go of the old. You have to eliminate the old. You have to clean. You have to purify yourself, right? There's a purity that comes in stress. There's a purity that comes in that moment of lack, that moment of, right? The most passionate people, the most productive people are those that have been in a place where their wants became a need, right? And their needs became their primary drive, their focus. All of their energy gets shifted. If your energy is going all kinds of places, if you're buying cheap clothes, right, because you don't have the discipline to save up for the good fabric, for the good piece of clothing that you really want, you're just getting like $10 items here and there instead of just saving up for 10 cycles until you get to a place of having $100, and then you can buy the piece that you actually want that will last you a lifetime or last you a long time. Some pieces of clothing and will last you a lifetime, but temperance is it's patience, it's trusting divine timing, and knowing that not putting your, this is, no carts or horses here, okay, but not putting your rickshaw, your rickshaw behind your rickshaw driver, because they're voluntary and horses are not. So yeah, I think there's something in there. Hopefully there's something in there for you. 50 on the clock. So that's 5. That's that lack. Create comfort in the discomfort. And yeah, if you want to follow along with some practices that will be brief, they're going to be 90-second reels, obviously. That's the time limit. Then hop over to Instagram, follow me there, or don't. Free will. Either way, you can do this, right? You are more powerful than you give yourself credit for. So test your own strength, or the divine will test it for you. And that's going to feel more victimizing. that's not going to be as much fun when you have to get a tower because you didn't do what was right for you. So I think that's all. That's all. That's all. And until the next one, I think I'm going to do the Hermit next because that's sitting here and that's calling out to me. Yeah, until then, I wish you well.